The air in the laboratory tasted of ozone and panic. Glass crunched under Patrick's worn boots. Workstations were overturned, data screens shattered. In the center of the chaos, a single hydro tank lay on its side, spilling a clear, thick liquid that did not evaporate. "They said he was unstable," Iris said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were clenched tight. "They said William had a breakdown and was moved to a care facility." Patrick nudged a broken beaker with his foot. "This doesn't look like a breakdown, doctor. This looks like a fight." He crouched, his eyes scanning the floor. He ignored the high-tech clutter and focused on the details. A smear of dirt near the fallen tank. Impossible. Aethelberg was a sterile city, floating high above the toxic clouds that buried Earth. Dirt was a memory. "Security cleared the area," Iris continued, her eyes fixed on the door. "Head of security Rhea told me it was an internal matter. But William was careful. He wouldn't do this." "Yes, you hired me because you don't trust them," Patrick said, standing up. He was a private investigator, a job that shouldn't exist in a perfectly controlled society. "What aren't you telling me?" Iris hesitated, then pulled a small data chip from her pocket. "I found this in his locker. It's encrypted." Patrick took the chip. "And the dirt?" he asked, pointing his chin at the strange smear. Iris looked, her brow furrowed in confusion. I don't know. This entire lab is a clean room. It's for the K-Cointine-B project. Nothing from the outside is allowed." The promise of K-Cointine-B was the only thing holding Aethelberg together. A new world, a water world, a new beginning for humanity. William was one of the top biologists working on making it happen. "I'll look at the chip," Patrick said. "You need to get me his full personnel file, unedited." "Rhea won't allow it." "Then find a way," he replied, walking towards the exit. "Or the only thing I'll find is the official story." Yes. Back in his small apartment in the city's lower tier, rain hammered against the reinforced window. Patrick plugged the chip into his terminal. The encryption was complex, but William had left a back door. A video file flickered onto the screen. It was William, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "It's not water," he whispered to the camera. His voice was rough. "They call it a Hycean world, but the samples are wrong. It's hungry. It dissolves, then it builds something new." The video cut out. Patrick leaned back. Dissolves, then builds. He thought of the spill in the lab, the liquid that didn't dry. His door chime buzzed. He opened it to find two large security officers in gray uniforms. Rhea stood behind them, her face a cold mask. "Patrick," she said, her voice flat. "Your investigation is over. Dr. Iris has withdrawn her request." "I haven't heard from her," Patrick said, blocking the doorway. "Yes, you are interfering with a critical city project." "A matter of security," Rhea stated. "It was a clear threat. Give me what Dr. Iris gave you." Patrick smiled, a cold, empty gesture. "I don't know what you're talking about." One of the guards moved to push past him. Patrick was faster. He slammed the door shut and engaged the heavy magnetic locks. He grabbed his coat and the data chip, then climbed out his window onto a narrow service ledge. Rain hit him instantly, cold and acidic. Below, the lights of Aethelberg spread out like a circuit board, a lonely island in an endless sky of poison gas. He needed to find Iris. He also needed to understand the dirt. He made his way across the slick walkways, his mind racing. A clean room, K21BB samples, a terrified biologist, and a smear of dirt. He found Iris not at her apartment, but back at the lab district, waiting in the shadows of a transport station. "Rhea visited me," was the first thing she said. "She knows I hired you." "Yes, she sent her guards to my place," Patrick replied. "What did William mean it dissolves?" Iris's composure finally broke. Fear showed in her eyes. He was running an unauthorized experiment. He brought in organic material from the archive, seeds, soil samples from old Earth. He exposed them to the K2-B water samples, and they changed, she whispered. A simple fern grew into something monstrous in a few hours. It broke the container. That's what happened in the lab. He was trying to destroy his work when security found him. "Where is this plant?" He hid it in a maintenance panel in the lab. They had to go back. Getting past the new security patrols was difficult. Iris used her high-level access codes to open a service hatch, and they moved through dark, tight corridors. The lab was now sealed, dark except for the soft blue light of standby systems. Iris led him to a wall panel. Patrick pried it open. Yes, inside, a strange plant with dark, oily leaves, pulsed with a faint internal light. It was a fern, but it looked alien and wrong. He wanted to prove it was dangerous, Iris said. He said the plan to move to K2-18b was a death sentence. The planet wouldn't welcome us. It would rewrite us. Suddenly, the main lights in the lab came on. Rhea stood by the door, flanked by 4 guards. They were holding heavy energy rifles. "You are both very persistent," Rhea said calmly. "I had hoped you would be smarter." "Where is he?" Patrick demanded. "Where is William?" "He is part of the solution now," Rhea said, with no emotion. "The project must succeed. There is no other choice. Earth is gone. The city is failing. K2-18b is not about colonization. It is about survival through adaptation." She gestured to her guards. "Take them to the medical wing. They can see the future for themselves." The medical wing was not a hospital. Yes, it was a series of chambers, each holding a large glass tank filled with the same clear liquid from the lab. And inside the tanks were people. Or what used to be people. Their bodies were covered in the same glowing plant-like substance. They were connected to tubes, their faces frozen in expressions of calm horror. In one tank, Patrick saw a man with William's face, his eyes open and staring but seeing nothing. "This is the only way," Rhea said, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "We can't live on K-18b as we are, but the water can change us. It can make us into something that can survive they." William understood this too late. Patrick felt a cold sickness in his stomach. The hope that fueled the entire city was a lie. This was the real plan, not a journey to a new home, but a forced, monstrous transformation. "You're turning people into plants," Patrick said, his voice low with disgust. "We are creating the next stage of humanity," Rhea corrected him. Yes, as the guards moved closer, Iris suddenly stepped forward. She wasn't looking at Rhea or the tanks. She was looking at Patrick. "He wasn't the first, you know," she said, her voice surprisingly strong. "William wasn't the first what they took for their experiments." Patrick frowned. "What are you talking about?" "My brother," Iris said, her eyes now burning with a cold fire Patrick had not seen before. "He was a journalist. He asked too many questions about the K-18b project 2 years ago. They told me he was transferred to the orbital station." From her coat, she pulled a small device. It wasn't a weapon. "I didn't hire you to save William," she said to Patrick. "I hired you to get me in here. I needed proof." Before Rhea could react, Iris pressed a button. A loud signal erupted from the device. It wasn't an alarm. On the monitors around the room, images began to flash. William's terrified face from the video log appeared, his voice echoing through the speakers. "Yes, it's not water, it dissolves, then it builds." The video cut to a live feed of the tanks. The camera zoomed in on the transformed face of William, then on the others. Iris had bypassed the lab's internal systems. She was broadcasting everything. Across the floating city of Ethelberg, on every public screen in every home, the terrible truth was appearing. The promise of paradise was replaced by the horror of the medical wing. Rhea stared, her perfect control finally breaking. She looked not at Iris, but at the citywide communication alert flashing red on a monitor. The lie was broken. Patrick looked from the screens, to the silent horrors in the tanks, to the woman who had sacrificed everything for this moment of terrible truth. The guards were frozen, watching the screens, their faces a mix of shock and fear. Outside, beyond the laboratory window, the thousands of lights of the floating city began to flicker in chaotic patterns, like a machine having a final, fatal seizure. Yes, the mystery was solved. But Patrick knew, with chilling certainty, that the story of Ethelberg was only beginning its fall. Yes,